my gosh.
Mia.
My goodness. Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just... It's a good question.
Really good question.
We wanted you to come back.
Yeah,
We asked for you. We needed you that day.
You really changed the energy of the day.
Do you ladies need anything before we begin?
We just need to be here.
Oh, but you're already here.
No. We need to be here.
Mm.
Here. 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 Here.
What we chose to do with the roles was something that I think that should be studied.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Dayton, Ohio.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
What does this movie mean to you guys? I think... It's okay, baby.
I know I'm super late, but I've been noticing the memes and TikToks and video essays about Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, and have done my fair share of cringing and laughing hysterically. People on the internet are truly so stupid and creative and hilarious. Even the critical drinker weighed in, and his commentary was monumental as always.
The two stars of this film were bad enough on their own, but watching them desperately fawn and clutch at each other like tormented POWs so physically and emotionally ruined that everyday noises and simple interview questions seem to trigger horrifying bouts of PTSD, the question I found myself asking was, my god, what the hell did this movie do to these two women? And is it gonna do the same to me?
Try as I might, I've noticed I genuinely cannot watch clips of these two women interacting. I want to be in on all the jokes with everybody else, but each time I try to watch one of their interviews and see for myself what their dynamic is truly like, I'm so cringed out I have to turn it off immediately. The secondhand embarrassment is just unbearable. It makes my skin crawl. Almost as intensely as Cynthia Erivo's insane vocal ability gives me chills. Side note, I started this video primed to come away believing the online demonization of Cynthia Erivo, thinking she was like a malignant person. But then I actually listened to her speak in different interviews, and I thought she came across as authentic and genuinely caring and sensitive and actually down to earth. And then I fell into an hours-long binge session watching tons of her live performances, which just defy comprehension. The clarity and power in her vocals literally transformed me. I'm not the same person I was before. I'm a huge fan of hers now, and that's not even coming from a place of bias because I was not fond of her before researching for this video. I became a fan of her and actually researching her character and listening to her speak and seeing her perform. I think she is a once-in-a-generation talent who deserves far more credit than the internet is giving her right now. With that being said, let's dig into why people have been slandering her of late. So suffice it to say, if Cynthia and Ariana's joint interviews have elicited a reaction of severe cringe in a viewer as casual as me and who wasn't caught up on all the memes and conspiracy theories, then that means there is something very off about their conduct in these interviews. So much so that scrutinizing and mocking them has become a global phenomenon. The long and short of it is, their behavior is not normal on so many different levels, and I can admit that, and we can all recognize that as chronically online media consumers. But beyond that, what's more troubling is that the behavior we're witnessing could possibly be symptomatic of something far darker taking place place behind the scenes, something that is abstract or insidious and hard to pin down, like toxic on-set culture that is either abusing them both or facilitating their mental and physical breakdown. And this can be done through brutal working conditions or unreasonable demands of perfection and productivity, working long hours. It's something that many people have speculated about, and frankly, I believe the concerns are warranted and deserve serious analysis. So obviously, Wicked was a book written by Gregory Maguire that reimagined the story of the Wizard of Oz as a scathing commentary on the politics of the time, depicting Oz as corrupt and authoritarian. It went on to be loosely adapted into a female-focused Broadway musical that debuted in 2003, focusing more on a female rivalry that later blossoms into friendship between Glinda, the so-called good witch, and Elphaba, the so-called bad witch. At the time, the cast consisted of Idina Menzel as Elphaba and Christian Chenoweth as Glinda, and it received rave reviews over time, going on to become one of the highest grossing Broadway productions in history. I remember hearing about it a ton at the time because I was a teenager or something, although I never had any interest in watching because I'm actually terrified of the original Wizard of Oz, and forever psychologically scarred by the 1939 film, especially that opening scene when the witch is a normal woman and she looks more like a scary Nazi dame and tries to steal Dorothy's dog on that creepy bike ride. Something about her as a normal woman was more scary to me than when she was a witch. And then just the concept of being trapped in a tornado as a child is horrifying, let alone being blown away in said tornado to a strange land of singing dwarves where green witches are running amok and trees are throwing apples and there are flying monkeys hunting you down. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot get home to your family. This is nightmare fuel. I don't see how anyone thought this was a child's movie. It is the scariest shit I have ever seen in my life. Also, the fact that it was filmed in 1939 is incredibly unnerving for some reason. Anyway, I digress. The spin-off story of Wicked became a timeless classic, more popular it seems than the original Wizard of Oz. The musical would then be given new life in a massive two-part movie adaptation of the same name, directed by Jon Chu, who directed Crazy Rich Asians, and starring Nickelodeon pop princess Ariana Grande as Glinda and Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba. I was quite familiar with Ariana from her being on shows I watched growing up, but I had never really heard of Cynthia before, except way back in like 2019 when she starred in the movie Harriet. Then again, I heard of her when all the drama began on the press tour. I was made aware of her being somewhat of a controversial figure, I guess you could say, because she had a strange reaction to fans using creative license to redesign the cover art for the movie, because apparently many of the fans were not fond of the official posters. I didn't see much wrong with it because fan art is a huge part of most works of fiction, especially one as beloved as this. I suppose she felt slighted by the updates to the poster, and I guess there is merit there if she felt it was coming from a mean-spirited place and she said it was dehumanizing to her, but I think they felt her direct stare sort of dampened the mystique of the character, and I agree. However, I can also see why she took it as them rejecting her being cast. Cut to Cynthia having an outsides reaction at the time and posting a mini rant on her IG stories. Then with the arrival of Wicked for Good, the second installment of the series, came a far more troubling and meme-worthy press tour, the likes of which we haven't seen since the disastrous Don't Worry Darling marketing campaign, up to and including physical attacks. Prior to those interviews, Ariana Grande had begun losing an alarming amount of weight, which left her looking quite emaciated. I remember, I believe at the Grammys, she was photographed and you could see her sternum and rib bones, and people were becoming very disturbed. So much so that the public began commenting on it regularly. Of course, some people were genuinely concerned for her health, and with good reason. No one wants to see a pop star as huge as her waste away and then die suddenly. However, Ariana would go on to address the critics of her appearance by saying,
I just wanted to address your concerns about my body and talk a little bit about what it means to be a person with a body and to be seen and to be paid such close attention to. I think we should be gentler and less comfortable commenting on people's bodies, no matter what. If you think you're saying something good or well-intentioned, whatever it is, healthy, unhealthy, big, small, this, that, There are many different kinds of beautiful. There are many different ways to look healthy and beautiful. I know personally for me, the body that you've been comparing my current body to was the unhealthiest version of my body. I was on a lot of antidepressants and drinking on them and eating poorly, and at the lowest point of my life when I looked the way you consider my healthy, but that in fact wasn't my healthy. Healthy can look different. The second thing is you never know what someone is going through. So even if you are coming from a loving place and a caring place, that person probably is working on it or has a support system that they are working on it with, and you never know.
Of course, this hasn't stopped the public from doing what they do best. The more you tell the public not to talk about something, the more they're going to talk about that thing. Some of the commentary has of course been more malicious and mocking in tone, and many of us have participated in it, which is a shame since we truly have no clue what's going on with her. It's obviously either something internal, meaning a physical or psychological illness, or it's something external, meaning she's possibly being stressed by something or someone or pressured to look a certain way. Whatever the case, it certainly deserves our sympathy, not overwhelming mockery, even if some of the memes can be terribly funny, albeit evil. During the marketing of Wicked for good, people began to notice that Ariana was not the only member of the cast losing dramatic amounts of weight. Believe it or not, Cynthia Erivo and Michelle Yeoh, I believe is how her last name is pronounced, have also underwent remarkable transformations since being cast in Wicked over 2 years ago, which mostly includes shedding an unhealthy amount of weight. I've heard many different perspectives on this, and many people feel it may be due to the current thin culture that has boomeranged back into style thanks to GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Zepbound gifting people the ability to make themselves thin seemingly overnight with the use of a syringe. And the medication is expensive, but that doesn't faze celebrities, so they're mainly the ones being accused of using it. By the way, a movie that provides near perfect commentary on the craze of Ozempic and the plastic surgery industry and toxic sexist beauty standards is The Substance, starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, I believe her name is pronounced. It's so grotesque, but the message resonates powerfully. The prevailing idea here is that, as with many things in Hollywood, celebrities are the best gauge of the latest in vogue beauty standards. They are the purveyors of diet culture and many weight loss medications and tend to set trends, illustrating for us which body types are acceptable for the moment. It has unfortunately always been that way and likely always will be. So now that thin is back in apparently, and celebrities renowned for being curvy like Kim Kardashian, or more full-figured and body-positive role models like Lizzo and Meghan Trainor have completely jumped ship and are now vying to be thin, it's safe to say the world will naturally follow. It always does. With that comes elements of social contagion, as with all major cultural trends. I'd recently heard of skinny talk gaining prominence. It's a dark corner of the intrawebs where really slim girls offer tips and best practices and harsh criticisms on how to become thin and stay that way, as well as edifying us on why being thin is superior. It became so pervasive that TikTok felt obligated to put a message of concern up for impressionable people who might fall prey to this toxic skinny culture and feel pressure to attain a body type that is unrealistic for most. So I've seen some people argue that the cast of Wicked could have been impacted by the new Ozempic sponsored thin movement and sort of took it to the extreme. I've also heard some argue that beyond the element of social contagion, Ariana's Eugenia Cooney-esque weight loss could have inspired Cynthia and Michelle to develop what's called competitive EDs, meaning within the culture of the set, they are competing to be the thinnest for whatever reason. Frankly, it makes perfect sense. Similar to skinny talk and the current Hollywood Ozempic craze, it all boils down to a social contagion, not wanting to feel left out of whatever is trending and popular at the time, coveting what others have, especially anything that gets them praise or attention, which is what social media has programmed the masses to do on a daily and hourly basis. Covet others, constantly comparing ourselves to one another and trying to attain the looks and fashion of those we deem ideal or superior, sometimes to the detriment of our own physical and mental health. And younger people are, of course, more vulnerable to these dark coercions. Therefore, it makes sense that a social contagion as powerful as the desire to be slim could have trickled down and affected different workplaces, because workplaces form their own subcultures. And within the cast of Wicked, they all could have very well been vying to be the slimmest, which to them may somehow translate to being the prettiest or the youngest looking, when in reality, they all look wasted and ill to the outside world. Then we also have to consider the alternative. What if this was an agreed upon creative choice by the women in question, sort of like method acting to help sell the witchy aesthetic for the film, meaning they intentionally lost weight for marketing purposes? If it was a concerted effort, then I can say it was a very effective one. The amount of publicity they've generated for this film due to their weight loss and strange behavior alone is immeasurable. There are so many viral videos and commentary videos and memes and very few lips that aren't discussing this film. Think about it. This movie is about witches, and they do indeed look like creepy, unearthly beings of some kind, and some of them hardly resemble anything remotely human anymore. Cynthia in particular looks especially like a shriveled little crone due to personal choices she made with her appearance, like the bald head, the no eyebrows, the septum ring, the weight loss, not to mention the incredibly long nails, which create an optical illusion, and they make her fingers look really witchy and elongated. Most of the animations making fun of them make them all look inhuman, and a lot of it has to do with the bald head and the long nails and the emaciated figures. But beyond the worrying physical transformations, Ariana and Cynthia have both engaged in eye-opening behavior that the internet has collectively deemed suspicious, such as the overlong staring, the excessive touching and misplaced intimacy, the awkward finger holding, the countless matching tattoos. Also, Cynthia's overprotectiveness and sometimes her aggression reads like possessiveness or the forceful isolation tactics of an abuser. Usually abusers don't want anyone to go near the person they're abusing. They don't want the victim to be coerced by anyone else. They keep them away from outsiders so they won't come to a point where they realize they're being abused. I'm not saying that's what Cynthia is doing, but I can see how some people feel her behavior comes off as that possessive, abusive isolation. Then there's the hyper emotionality of it all, them tearing up at the most anodyne and predictable press questions as if the questions are incredibly profound. It's all so weird. The public is right to call it out, but of course, some people are just being opportunist and being more vicious than necessary for clicks. And I want to be clear here, there is absolutely nothing strange or problematic about two friends being physically affectionate, especially two girls. Holding hands and being physical is how some friends behave, and it's perfectly normal. The problem here is all the other strange behavior factored in on top of that, which has started to make people believe we're witnessing a little more than the innocuous PDA of close friends. Even so, I strongly believe most of the world wouldn't be as bothered as they are by these women or their weeping in the interviews, if not for the strange physical transformations compounding it all. And I get it, there is something unholy and deeply disturbing about watching the waif-thin, anemic-looking Ariana with her childlike mannerisms and doe eyes being physically controlled and maneuvered and kissed by the strange-looking and overbearing Cynthia Erivo. And since there are still no definitive answers as to what the hell has gone on with these two, I would like to take a look at the wildest conspiracy theories that have surfaced and see if any of them hold water. So it turns out that quote about them being in a non-demi-curious, semi-binary relationship is fake and originated from a satirical account that regularly posts fake celeb quotes.
It's really sweet how you touch each other. You like to touch like in a non-sexual way.
God.
And it is.
Still, some people are quite convinced these two might be more intimately involved behind the scenes, which would explain the strange intimacy bleeding through and being captured on camera. It's difficult to say there is no credence here just because they're both known to be in public relationships with other people. I say this because we know Ariana Grande has a history of alleged homewrecking, including on the set of Wicked itself.
I explain this, Ariana Grande's been accused of being a serial cheater since she was a teenager on Victorious. The claim came from Ricky Valentina, who said that she was dating an extra on Victorious at the time, and Ariana Grande was texting him often even though she was well aware that he had a girlfriend. There was also the late Naya Rivera, who said she walked in on her fiance Big Sean with Ariana Grande on the couch where they were definitely not wearing a lot of clothing. Those were just 2 of about 7 cheating accusations Ariana Grande has.
It was reported by TMZ that she had separated from her husband, Dalton Gomez, in January 2023, and by September 2023, it was revealed that she filed for divorce. She would ultimately begin seeing a man named Ethan Slater, her co-star on the set of Wicked, who was also married at the time they met to a clinical psychologist named Lily J. Ariana and Ethan were rumored to have been caught making out publicly as early as March 2023. While Ethan and his wife were still making social media posts gushing over one another, calling each other husband and wife. He would then go on to file for divorce from his wife in July 2023, months before Ariana followed suit. Filming for Wicked began in England in December 2022 and lasted until January 2024. So them both leaving their spouses throughout the filming of Wicked after meeting one another is by no means a coincidence. Ethan Slater would even divorce his wife despite having a newborn child at home. She was pregnant or was recently pregnant when he met Ariana, and this was after his wife had uprooted her life and possibly her career and moved to England for his career. That is just diabolical. He is a total fucking selfish prick to uproot her and then dump her in England. So is Ariana. Lily J would later be quoted by Page 6 in July 2023 addressing the role Ariana played in wrecking her marriage, stating, "Ariana's the story really, not a girl's girl. My family is just collateral damage," and she's exactly right. The meme for a while was that Ariana wrote songs on her album being all possessive of her so-called new man. Then people on social media would juxtapose those cringy lyrics with images of this absolute creep. And her own fans would remind her that she was effectively dating SpongeBob.
Day couldn't get much better, but it keeps on trying.
So it's safe to say Ariana is not above wrecking her own relationships or the relationships of others to get what she wants. Some of her song titles and lyrics also arrogantly reflected this, such as Yes and I believe she had a song called That Boy Is Mine, which is just disgusting. Cynthia Erivo, on the other hand, is reportedly in a relationship with writer and producer Lena Waithe, and I'm not certain of the nature of Ariana and Cynthia's relationship, but the incredibly intimate touching and hand kissing and the excessive grooming, and by grooming I mean fixing one another up, which most girls do to some extent, and the matching tattoos all seem to suggest this isn't the average friendship, and that it could very well be bordering on experimenting with romance or sexual intimacy. I suppose time will tell. Even so, the way they've been behaving together has certainly overshadowed Ariana's home-wrecking scandal with Ethan, as he seems to be non-existent these days. Her song Thank You Next should have been a hint and a half of how superficial she can be in her romantic conquest. It's like once Ariana has achieved a new acquisition, she grows bored of it in short order and is off seeking new adventures. It's not totally implausible that Cynthia could be next. Another claim circulating online is that the two might have trauma bonded due to something that occurred on set. Some people even say that with landing the role on Wicked, it unpacked a lot of past trauma for Ariana and the things she may or may not have gone through as a child star on Nickelodeon, especially after the release of the bombshell documentary Quiet on Set, which apparently highlighted some of the abuses the cast on popular Nickelodeon shows were subjected to at the hands of predatory producers and creative directors. I also saw a video of someone examining Ariana's history on Nickelodeon and how she chose to play the role of a babyish, more like lobotomized character on Victorious and Sam and Cat, and how Ariana seemed comfortable in that role. She's more naturally inclined to being childlike, although again, a lot of the times it borderlined on making fun of people who were developmentally impaired. But Ariana possibly finding home in that role is likely the manifestation of some sort of repressed trauma from her childhood, or maybe even an arrested development. I found that angle particularly interesting. I honestly couldn't stand her behavior and voice as Kat on Nickelodeon, and I found the portrayal very unfunny, but it makes sense of why we see her acting more and more fragile despite her only getting older. She's 32 right now, and often looks and acts and sounds half her age. It's like she's resisting growing up and may arguably even be regressing. She's always been prone to this fragile infantile act, so it's probably easier for her to revert back to this behavior whenever she's going through something difficult in her life, or, you know, whenever she isn't out playing the heartless vixen, stealing someone's husband, and then ruthlessly bragging about it in her music. Ariana is essentially an identity crisis incarnate, so it's not a huge leap that she might also be battling some serious body image issues if she has no idea who she is or who she truly wants to be half the time. Some suggest that, in fact, Ariana, by reverting to this childlike behavior, is exhibiting all the symptoms of a person trapped in an abusive domestic relationship, and that accordingly, Cynthia is exhibiting many red flags of an abuser. There is some validity here in terms of legitimate critiques of some of their behavior, especially Ariana acting more doll-like and fragile, but I do wonder how much truth lies behind the conclusion that they're in a secret relationship, which is also potentially abusive. That's a whole lot of speculation packed into one conspiracy, and the more you have to assume, the less likely those things are true. Like Occam's razor, there are simpler explanations for what might be going on that might explain everything, in fact, and I'll talk about those a little later. As it stands, there is little publicly available evidence to support the idea that they're in a romantic relationship that might have become abusive over time. But just because that evidence isn't publicly available doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. This had to be one of the most unsettling theories of them all, because I do believe in different aspects of spirituality, and I do believe spiritual afflictions can take a toll on our physical bodies and affect our mental health. Dark spiritual influences also tend to glorify the perverse, or what we would see as the opposite of normal. It's meant to jar you, to be shocking, to disturb you. The opposite of bodily health would be illness or emaciation. The opposite of mental health would be exhibiting behavior that is emotionally unwell, in which both women seem to be totally fragile, very weepy, and Ariana is regressing almost into a childlike state. And the opposite of God-given beauty would be what we see taking place with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana to some extent, because the emaciation has aged her in some ways. But with Cynthia Erivo, it's not just her dramatic weight loss, but also her shaving her head bald voluntarily, also her removing her eyebrows, also her inserting the massive septum ring in her nose to resemble a bull, and the creepy, extremely long nails that makes her look like some kind of nightmarish creature. Don't get me wrong, I know she is naturally very beautiful, very feminine, and insanely talented. I also personally find that her talent gives her a certain internal beauty that just radiates outwardly when she performs, and it gives her such aura on stage that the unpleasantness of her outward appearance is totally overshadowed. Her voice is a literal gift from the heavens, so it makes me wonder why she has deliberately made herself look so repugnant. I know beauty is subjective, and some people may find her look to be high fashion or artistic, but it just perturbs me. For a photo shoot, okay, I can see you doing it. For a runway, okay, I can see you doing it, because those things are camp and a little bit extra and it's temporary. But her continuing to rock this hideous look, in my opinion, is hideous, especially because I know the mantle of her unattractiveness is entirely voluntary. It just puzzles me. It's like she wants people to be repelled by her simply to challenge beauty standards, and I simply cannot understand why she takes it to such an extreme, especially the long witchy nails. But I can sympathize with her reasoning for relating to Elphaba so much, especially as a black girl, because the discrimination Elphaba experiences due to having green skin is of course allegorical to the experience of black women, especially darker skinned black women, and the way they are othered, and how many feel excluded from traditional beauty standards that elevate more European features, straight hair, and fairer skin. So in that case, I totally get why Cynthia feels so passionately about portraying this character and the messages embedded in the film as emphatically as she does. And I do understand her tears, especially when she expresses some of the exclusion and marginalization she experiences.
Watching Elphaba and seeing this character, you're not gonna tell me that didn't sit with you and what we saw on the screen wasn't real.
Go. Hey.
And didn't come from a place, yeah. I don't know who can watch this movie and not have that.
Yeah.
And it's almost undescribable how you feel when you're watching it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to tell all of us, I see, like you're telling all of us, I see you, you know?
Yeah.
I can also understand Ariana's tears at times, especially when she's discussing some of the body image issues she deals with as a celebrity who feels forced to be perfect all the time. And then when you fix one thing, they go and criticize another thing. I totally get that. And I sympathize with them in those moments.
And I'm wondering, how do you do to cope with beauty standards, to critics, to looks? Because this is something that is so overwhelming for women to always look perfect. How do you deal with that?
My goodness. Yeah. I'm not gonna. It's okay. It's okay. It's just. It's a good question.
Really good question.
Thank you.
Because I've been kind of doing this in front of the public and kind of been, a specimen in a petri dish really since I was 16 or 17, you know? So I have heard it all. I've heard every version of it, of what's wrong with me, and then you fix it, and then it's wrong for different reasons.
My theory is actually quite simple and straightforward. I actually held this theory from the beginning and had a brief discussion with my mother because my mother was in the camp that was sort of vilifying Cynthia because my mother is really against anyone who makes themselves look the way Cynthia looks on purpose. And she also thought Cynthia was a little aggressive, but she admitted that's because she only observed Cynthia through memes, and a lot of those are unfairly portraying her. It's really uncharitable the way they clip her together. But from the beginning, I told my mom my theory from day one. And if I had to put money on it, I would wager that Ariana Grande might be battling an illness of some kind or a major stressor in her private life that remains undisclosed to the public. And Cynthia is clearly aware of this and does all she can to protect Ariana because of this illness or this complication in her private life, which could even include suicidality, which would have made her more fragile.
The second thing is you never know what someone is going through. So even if you are coming from a loving place and a caring place, that person probably is working on it or has a support system that they are working on it with, and you never know. So be gentle.
And this would have made Cynthia more fiercely protective. Or it could be what most people suspect, that Ariana is struggling with an ED and that Cynthia is aware of that. And Cynthia might have lost weight in solidarity with Ariana or to help deflect scrutiny from Ariana's weight loss by having her own weight loss. Because Cynthia Erivo is actually really healthy and fit. Have you ever seen her insane gym videos? My body aches just looking at some of the physical feats she's capable of. She's like an Olympian. Only a person quite conscious about their health and strength training and their nutrition can do these things. So I highly doubt Cynthia is also battling an eating disorder in earnest. I think she knows how to lose body fat like most athletes do, and that she has made a conscious effort to do so for some reason, more than likely to support Ariana or to deflect attention from her and her personal problems, since we know how vigilant and protective Cynthia is of Ariana. This may have extended to Michelle participating as well, if she was aware of the dire straits Ariana might be going through behind the scenes. Although, in my opinion, Michelle has always had very low body fat content from what I can see. But I can say that it does look like it progressed a little with the casting of Wicked. All of these women genuinely could just be overworked. That genuinely can be the answer to everything. Ultimately, all of this just amounts to conjecture. There is zero evidence that I've seen proving Cynthia Erivo is a bad or malignant person, that she wishes anyone ill, especially Ariana, and there is no evidence proving Ariana is in some sort of distress and is afraid of Cynthia, or that she is in a secret romantic relationship with her, although it does seem like it sometimes. We may never know the full truth, but exploring the theories and actually taking the time to listen to the actresses and not be so quick to jump on the bandwagon of dehumanizing them really helped me to understand the situation better, and I came to appreciate Cynthia Erivo much more.